Hi, Jim Ziegler, the Alpha Dawg, and this is the Dawg Pound.
Ooh, we got a new logo going up.
Oh, Christmas past, New Year's Eve on the way. I'm telling you, it's been a spectacular 2021. Let's get that behind us. What's coming up in 2022? And I've got the people to tell you all about what was, what will be, and what is. Starting with one of my friends, I'm talking about one of the most intelligent, one of the most creative people in the entire car business, man or woman, my friend Jennifer Briggs.
Well, hello. I don't know about that creative thing, but I will take all the rest.
Oh, you know, I wanted some new adjectives this week.
I like it.
I did design some holiday ads last week because we needed someone to jump in. So I did have a little creativity going. Proud of myself.
I'll tell you, the Dawg Pound has been such a year for us. And the queen of BDC, I'm talking about a woman that's held every executive position in a car dealership. I think she's even washed restrooms. I mean, this woman here
I have
done everything. Bobby Herring.
Hello, everyone.
Been a spectacular year, hasn't it?
Man, it's been an amazing year, actually. I mean, all things unsaid, it's been an amazing year. I think we've been pretty blessed.
And I'll tell you what, you got to meet and know our other good friend, the Mad Russian, Max Zanin. Hey, big guy.
Hey, Jim, how are you?
Where are you today?
I'm in Spain.
You're still in Spain.
I love it.
Yeah. Sometimes he's in Spain, sometimes he's in New York, sometimes he's in Pennsylvania. And
all because of car business.
What?
All because of car business.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
I feel like I've learned the backgrounds. I wonder if the rest of the viewers do, just by what's behind Max.
Yeah. That's how I know. That's how we know where he is. Secret coding.
That's for darn sure.
Well, I'm sure Jennifer's tracking my IP address.
We got ways.
We Apple AirTagged you a long time ago, my friend.
Max, what did you learn in 2021? What did the car business do?
So I learned, right, something that I think we all failed to learn in school or in college. I learned that, supply and demand actually means something. And when there's not enough cars, you don't have to be a genius to make a lot of money. And I truly hope, dealers learn the lesson and refuse the cars that are coming their way.
Incredible, because I've been screaming from the mountaintops for years. I've been the voice in the wilderness, now I'm a senior statesman, but still, I tell people, consumers have the money. I have always succeeded in the car business because I could talk the consumers into forking over the down payment.
It's amazing what happens if you just ask. It's like the first thing we teach in finance, right? Present the menu 100% of the time. No matter what, ask the question 100% of the time. It's amazing what will happen if you just ask somebody. I think we get in our head too often and think we can answer for a customer instead of just asking them.
Yeah.
So for years, I've been teaching people that the number one thing that kills dealerships is fear of the money.
They don't so often, and I'm really glad that they had this break, and what I hope we can continue in 2022. And I don't agree with Max as don't get the inventory, because we're going to hit a ceiling at some point without units. But what I do think is fantastic is that so often we see salespeople and managers even afraid, or they don't understand the value that they're bringing in that unit or in the dealership. And so, price is only an issue in absence of value. Like, this is sales 101. And this flip, and I'm giggling because Max, I know that you learned that in economics in college, supply and demand. Like, I think you and I might have some same background. I'm not a finance person, but I have a finance degree. And that in equity with inventory, I think gave people more confidence But I also saw it create some serious insecurities in certain departments in handling those customers as well, like BD agents. Look at that, for example.
Yeah.
While the rest of the store was experiencing record-breaking earnings because we get a percentage of gross, a lot of those people, their pay plans are not based off of gross. And so they didn't have the confidence. So we saw dramatic drops in performance of those departments in 2021. So finding that blend moving forward into next year to be confident in the value that you bring to your customer, regardless of inventory situations.
Regardless, because the number one thing that I have taught for years, I mean, not just this year, the number one thing that blows deals is fear of the money. For years, I have worked with thousands of dealerships, not one or two or hundreds, thousands of dealerships that I have worked with in the 48 years I've been in the business. The number one thing that blows profits, that blows deals, customers leave because the managers and the salespeople are afraid of the money. And now we're charging $20,000 over sticker. What do you think, Max?
Listen, gross profit is a state of mind, right? And if you believe in what you're doing and you can ask for the money with confidence, you will get this $10,000 or $20,000 over sticker. But the funny thing about confidence, is that it goes away real quick. One rejection, one slap in the face, and in this case, it would be one dealer or one OEM who's willing to either flood the market or do a triple net loser on a car, and all that confidence is out of the window.
I don't think we're talking about confidence. I think what we're talking about, right? I mean, the situational or circumstantial success that so many are having right now because of limits, that's not necessarily the confidence I'm talking about, Max. I'm talking about believing in yourself as a professional and in the value that you bring to the transaction. Because I mean,
I know. Some of us are more idealistic than others.
You two crack me up.
We got more to talk about than that one subject.
What about this? What about the Federal Reserve?
Bobby, what did you learn in 2021? What are we glad to leave behind us in the car business?
Well, I'll give you a personal and a professional. If you would have told me 4 years ago that I could slow down and still accomplish what I do and still win alongside clients, I would have bet you $1 million I couldn't. And what we've gone through has forced me to do that. And so now I realize I can, and I can still achieve the level of what I'm doing. And I think a lot of people realize that over the last 2 years, for me, especially traveling nonstop, I went from traveling 3 weeks a month to 1 week a month, and we doubled our business. So it's been really interesting. When I look at automotive, I know I say this a lot, but this year, I hope that everybody learned that the only thing that you're going to have to do to beat your competition when inventory comes back is take care of the customer and go back to what you're supposed to be doing instead of these shortcuts and these cheats. And that will be all it will take, because everybody is forgetting.
Well, in 2021, first of all, we just came out of COVID. I mean, the major, COVID's still with us.
First wave, yeah.
Yeah, we came out of the major onset of COVID, and where we were locked down and the dealers were shut down. So now the people are sort of poked out, So now we're 2021. We started to sell cars again, and next thing we know, we got the inventory shortage, the chip shortage.
There's always something.
And and even into 2022, is this going to continue, Max?
It looks like it is. So it looks like it'll be a very profitable year again for car dealers. But again, at some point, and I don't think anybody knows it, nobody has a crystal ball. But at some point, there will be hard landing, and not everybody's going to make it.
Okay. So,
well, yeah, look at the Federal Reserve is already, the increase, we're going to have a huge increase in interest rates, guaranteed, because we had a huge drop this year. And with people coming out of what they've been going into, I think we're going to see a significant difference in lending policies coming up here shortly.
Well, I don't know about lending policies. I know that a lot of the banks have really tightened up. Wells Fargo, for example.
Yeah.
Wells Fargo was just free-form loaning money, and all of a sudden that's tightened up. And matter of fact, I have $100,000, or no, what I got? I have a $500,000 credit line with Wells Fargo, and they shut down the credit lines on all those lines of credit.
Yeah, well, now you're seeing lenders, particularly, I think more now you're seeing lenders start to reduce credit lines for people who aren't actually utilizing them. In the past, you could get away with that for a little bit longer, but they're winding down their quantitative easing policy right now. And so even Automotive News is saying they're signaling for at least 3 increases in rates next year, with the first one coming probably the first quarter and the second 2 later in the year. Their lending policies have to change in order for them to continue to lend, because it looks different right now. I mean, think about the housing market affects that. Everything affects that right now.
That line of credit, I haven't used it for 3 or 4 years, but it was against my own money that they had on deposit.
Yeah, right. Yeah, for listeners, right now, if you got a big old line of credit, put something on it temporarily so you're not flagged.
Right.
100% secured by my own money, and they shut down all of those.
Well, they can only lend so much, right? So once they get to the end of the lending limit, or whatever that's called, I don't know the name of it. So I'm just using, like, literary moments. But when they get to the maximum of what they can lend, they start to look at the people they lend to, regardless of how that money is used, to see if they're actually using it. And then they start to go through and remove the ability to lend to them, because they don't make money if you're not paying interest.
Right.
No, I hadn't.
I'm not convinced, that lenders will change anything. Right, because
you don't think they'll change the rates?
They will change the rates, but it'll be tiny increases. Even if it's 3 quarter point basis increase, it'll be 0.75 rate bump, nothing more. But the point is this: they got out of a huge jam, right? Because they had to take a huge beating on the residual values, right, and all the lease returns coming back, and they ended up, smelling like roses. So somebody's going to get a huge bonus, right, and lose a sense of reality, right, and roll out new crazy lending programs. You'll see.
You think so?
I mean, that right there, that residual bubble is giving me 2009 all over again.
Right, but these guys, there's no clawback in their compensation. You know that, right? There's no clawback clause in banking. So people that are in charge, whether it's mortgage banking, investment banking, auto lending, right? They think very, very short term. They're not going to be around when the next lease cycle comes back and there's a bloodbath with residuals.
Well, let's talk about dealers now. Once again, inventory shortage. Once again, we got salespeople that think they had something to do with that. Every week I see something on social media. We set an on-time record. We're giving trophies to the salespeople, and hey, excuse me, guys, a monkey with a note in his mouth could sell 30 cars.
Well,
unless they don't have 30 on the lot, because I feel like I've seen that over the last couple months.
If you had 30, they could sell them.
Well, I think what it's really going to be important for management to remember, if you have been celebrating these awesome victories, whether they were 100% earned or not with your team, just remember coming into the first quarter that January and February cyclically are always the worst months for us as far as units go. So while you're patting them on the back right now for what's happening just because of market conditions, let's also remember in January and February, when those market conditions, the same thing that happens every year, let's make sure we're investing the same amount of effort either in training or TOs or whatever we need to do to make sure that our teams can have some consistency, or hopefully you've been advising them to tuck some of that away, like I always do with my teams, to cover January and February.
Well, and remember, forecasting needs to be completely different this year. So the people who are rolling out of December and out of 2021 on a high note, be so careful in your forecasting coming up here. If you haven't done it already and you're getting ready to start it, or you're completing
you haven't done it already.
Well, some haven't got it done yet, but if you don't have it done yet, or if you're needing to make changes, like now would be the time to really consider what this year is going to look like between inventory, between a reduction in manufacturer incentives. I think we're going to see the used car market shift even higher than it already has because of the reduction in in inventory, as well as like interest rates. I think that's going to change. And then rebates and incentives. I think those are going to be significantly different. Why wouldn't they be?
Another thing that happened in 2021, it was already here, but all of a sudden it exploded. Carvana.
Sorry, I know my face always does that when somebody says Carvana.
It really does.
Carvana.
She has a bad poker face.
I remember 9 years ago when Del Pollock came to train my sales managers up in Michigan at Feldman because Auto Trader asked me what they could do for me. And I said, well, you could have Del Pollock come train my sales managers. What was the worst thing they could do? Say no?
I remember that.
It worked out great. But I remember Dale coming up to me after the training and telling me, he goes, here, you're paying attention to things. I want you to write this name down. And the name was Carvana.com. And, check them out, see, you're going to want to keep an eye on them. We were doing a lot of things, again, like Max says, utopian or whatever, but I just worked for groups that I guess we just thought it was a necessity, Max. We didn't realize we were so forward thinking in these things. We just thought it was a necessity to lean business.
She's so modest, right? She's so modest.
I've only spoken to Dale Pollock one time. And I made a prediction. This has been 10 years ago. I met Dale one time and I said, V-Auto is absolutely exceptional until everybody gets it.
That's
because
right.
Once everybody's got V-Auto, guess what, Dale? There's only so many buyers in the market. You're not going to create new buyers. You're not going to go into men's room and poop out some new customers. I mean, let's face it. There's only so many customers in the market, and the next thing V-Auto is going to do is drive prices down, which it did.
Well, and it did even before that. I remember the first store where we had V-Auto and the used car manager was not trained in the software. And granted, like there has to be a blend of it and you have to know how to use it. It was the first year we ever lost money in that department was the year we installed V-Auto, but that wasn't the software's issue. And I was still in the administrative side running all of the offices for the group at that time. So I didn't have say over how we trained our management team. But, it was 100% the fact that we didn't know how to use the tool. And it was a race to the bottom. And it was gut wrenching to look at that statement at the end of the year and like, how did we lose money in used cars? It's a fantastic tool if you use it the right way. I think the training is better now, but I still see it sometimes where we're uneducated or not trained and just taking a swing at it. And I mean, you want to take a swing at what your bottom line is going to be, great, but that's a little too risky for me.
Max 2022.
So this might be a very unpopular idea, right?
Oh, no, Max.
But listen, if you're a GM or a dealer principal, right, and you haven't changed your pay plans for salespeople, shame on you, right? Because your comp to gross is through the roof, right? These people are not doing anything spectacular to sell these cars now, right? Listen. The $20,000 over sticker is not because if the salesperson was like mega trained or has amazing product knowledge. It's because it's the only car in a 200-mile radius, right? So if you continue to pay your standard 20%, right?
Get us crucified.
Yeah, but listen, I'm real.
I'm biting my tongue.
Right, but I'm just being real. If you're
paying on gross is what you're saying. Okay. 25% of the gross was standard in the industry 48 years ago when I stepped out of radio and got into car business. 25% of the gross. Okay. So now you're saying percentage of the gross is a bad pay plan.
It's a good pay plan. You just have to adjust it because the profits that are coming in are not due to the efforts of salespeople.
So what Max is saying,
Max, the last 3 car dealerships I left because of pay cuts.
Right. So what Max is saying is it was okay when they were taking the skinny deals as your sales team because either you didn't know how to buy or invest or do whatever. So it was okay for your sales team to take a skinny, but now that margin has gone up, I'm not saying
it has to equate. I'm just saying that a reduction would be reasonable.
If your dealer changes your pay plan on Max's advice, give me a call. I have a home for you.
Hey, Max, you ever see the Blue Man Group in Vegas?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, you need to get some green paint, like their blue paint, and you can become the Grinch who stole commissions.
Right.
We need to hashtag that. The Grinch who stole commissions.
That's right.
Yeah.
I would tell you that right now is a really good time to evaluate the perks that are involved in your pay plan, because retention is an issue. It's always an issue in our industry. It's a significant issue right now. And so is recruiting. I'm trying to recruit a marketing director right now for a killer store with great perks and running up against people all across the country who are adding new things. This age group, this diversity that we experience, this desire to have a committed and loyal floor means that we have to change some of those things up. And there's not been a better time. We have a client actually who just announced paid maternity and paternity and adoption leave for employees who have been there for longer than a year to have, I think it was 6 weeks, don't hold me, I think it's 6 full weeks of paid leave. And it was a huge fight to get it. What a huge draw to be able to bring people in, especially to create a diverse floor.
Wow.
Right. And you can do that by changing the pay plan. You can offer the
I can't co-sign a reduction in gross for that. From a dealer perspective, I'm sure there's people out there, but that will lead to huge retention issues.
Paternity. Did you say you're going to pay salespeople paternity leave?
Yeah.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah, because why is that ridiculous?
That's ridiculous.
Think about for a minute. That's not ridiculous. Part of paternity leave is bonding for both parents and for a couple that are together, and giving somebody who's a salesperson on the floor paternity leave as paid with a new baby allows them to have a bond at home, allows them to help. And I'm telling you what, happy house, happy spouse.
Right. I was going to say,
way better work-life balance.
Absolutely. Social organization.
Guys, you have to understand that when part of the hard landing is going to be the fact that the salespeople that are making, like Diana's saying, $300,000 a year, selling 8 cars a month.
I was creating some dissension.
Right? These people will be the first ones to bounce. Right? There'll be such a huge exodus of people, right, that will realize that a sales position does not pay $300,000 unless you're super talented, right, and super consistent and have a pipeline of customers, right? So might as well get ready now and start prepping your team for what's coming.
Yeah, but if those people are going to eliminate themselves, Max, why do we need to change the commission percentages?
So we can save some money.
I would challenge everybody. They don't even need to save money right now. Like, you know what, though? What Max is saying, like, keep in mind for everybody listening before you just go on to the one thing, your comp gross levels need to be in line. But shame on you if they're not already in line. Because if you're making 20 grand more on a car, then your in line should be what it was when you wrote the pay plan. Yes, they're making more, but you're making more. You should still be leveling off where you're at, where you're supposed to be. And if you're not, your pay plan wasn't right in the first place. Right. Huge issue that we deal with all the time in writing a pay plan. One of the frustrations, I think, and we'll see this come from salespeople all down the side and sales managers, is there is nothing more frustrating than when you're doing really well to have a pay plan cut come in, because what it says is, I don't see value in what you're accomplishing. But it didn't matter when it was $100 deal and you were getting a mini and your marketing was wrong and your inventory was wrong and you weren't doing it right. And so now everybody's taking minis and you got a sales manager on the desk who's not doing training. You don't have a closer or somebody who knows how to do it. And you're taking all of those hits. And there are some people who are making way more money than they should be making right now because things are a little bit easier than they have been before, a lot easier than they have been before. But there's something to be said for retention.
Tom Hawkins says we've been on a volume-based pay plan for 25 years. So they're paying salespeople based on the units regardless of gross. Do we agree with that?
I think that your pay plan has to fit the motivation of the team that you are leading, in addition to measuring out for your financials. Right. It's not that easy.
A Chevy store in a certain type of market, like, that makes total sense. for him. And, coming out of the Detroit market with 5 Chevrolet stores, that before we definitely were volume based, but in different areas and different brands, it's not that way. So I think that's awesome for Tom. He won't, it's been fairly consistent on whatever his volume based is, and whether it's volume, if that percentage goes up based on volume, like if you had the proper stair steps to motivate your team to achieve the top levels of success that they can. That's what Bobby's talking about. Like your compensation might not have been right to begin with. If
all humor,
it's usually not.
All humor aside, when I was a manager, my philosophy was always hire the best people and pay them too much. Mm-hmm. And I've always overpaid, even as a consultant. When I had 40 employees at Ziegler Super Systems, I had three of my guys were making, and one of my guys was a woman. The top 3 people I had.
Always been smart.
What?
I said you've always been smart.
I'll tell you her name. I'll tell you her name when we get off the air. I'm not going to name her, but yeah, I had a woman making $300,000 in 2007.
Well,
I've always believed you overpay people.
A correct pay plan, a motivation-based pay plan per psychology and fact, is that one pay plan shouldn't look the same for everybody on the sales floor. I'll tell you, that's a huge reason that there's so many retention issues, is because we are sometimes paying somebody $200,000 to sell. Let's say it's a normal time, they're selling 25 cars a month and they're making $200,000. And that person's loyalty comes from having a work-life balance, having paternity leave, having the ability to go to their kid's soccer game, and they'll take $120,000 instead. I promise you the choice. Huh?
Are you kidding?
I think it's brilliant. For those of you out there who have a spouse at home, you call me, because my deal, this client is hiring. This is the one that's hiring for marketing director.
Yeah, I'm general manager of deal. Paternity leave, get out of my office.
Well, Jim, that is
no way.
This is a normal perk of regular employment that's given to women, but not typically in dealerships, through a lot of businesses, or it's unpaid. And if you want the retention and you want people to work that hard for you, you have to care about their family as well. And I'll give a stellar salesperson 6 weeks off, no problem. Because when they come back, the commitment level, the loyalty level, and the work ethic, it's not lost. It's not gone.
Yeah, but I think we're talking about completely different things. I agree with everything you're saying, right? In normal market conditions,
I appreciate that.
Thank you. You need to have like a normal pay plan that attracts people and helps you retain them. We are not living through normal market conditions. People are making money not because of their sales skills. They're making money because there's not enough inventory. And
but we can't staff for today. We have to staff for tomorrow.
Right, but I'm saying there's zero effort to sell a car now. There's zero training that you need to sell a car. Like Jim says, in this economy, right, you can put a monkey with a notepad and they will sell a car, right? That's what I'm talking about. These people don't need to be making 25% of a $20,000 gross. No way, right? Because you're only poisoning them for what's coming. And what's coming is the Mini. Mini is going to make a huge comeback, come into a dealership near you, right? Right? And when that salesperson, right, who got hired during this pandemic, compares his, $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 commission with $100 Mini, guess what's going to happen? They're just going to shake your head and say, "Have a nice day."
Well, yes, but if you are not preparing your team, like when I interview for a commissioned role, we're talking about commission fluctuations. We're talking about how things normally ebb and flow. And especially if I'm pulling somebody from a different industry into a sales role who's never been in automotive before. Setting that expectations is part of what we are supposed to do as a leader. Preparing our teams to step into that is part of what we are supposed to do. And so I agree with you, Max, in situations where the leadership in the store is not taking those steps, there will be that type of fallout. But if you've brought somebody in and this is their first time in the business in this market, and you have not prepared them for what's going to happen on the other side, then you've failed that person.
Well, let me ask everybody another question. I think we beat this one to death for a second. BDC.
Are you sure you don't want to talk about paternity leave more?
I don't talk about paternity
I'm
leave.
calling Miss Debbie when we get off the phone.
That's a banned topic.
We're paternity.
It's actually great that we're talking about it like this because half of our viewers will be on one side and half will be on the other, and this allows open collaboration.
I believe in paternity leave, but let's move on. Okay, the BDC, the Business Development Center, dead or alive? I mean, what do we need a BDC for today?
To buy cars.
Oh,
I'll tell you what we need. I'll tell you what we need a BDC center for.
Wait a minute, Jennifer. I didn't prep you on that, did I?
No, that's just the truth.
No, but I've been using them that way for the last 10 years. So,
what role does the BDC play in 2022? It certainly isn't selling more cars. What role does the BDC play right now?
well, I mean, a business development center should always be helping you to develop business. And in most market conditions, I know I'm crazy because I started in accounting and I realized my most profitable department outside of service is in variable, it's used. So I've always had that focus and I don't like paying auction fees. And especially since I've moved out of Michigan, I don't like going to auctions with CarMax. Okay. I got a CarMax right down the street from me. I don't like overpaying. So for the longest time, and actually I had a new client come on earlier this year. And I was like, listen, before I even come on site to train your BDC, let's start with your vehicle acquisition specialist first, because it would be nice if you actually had some cars to sell when I got there.
Okay. So the vehicle acquisition, now that is actually what I'm advising dealers that I talk to. That's your focus for 2022. How are you going to get more cars? I mean, you got to have inventory to sell. You mentioned CarMax. I mean, and anytime you go to the auction and CarMax is present, they're standing there with their hand up till their arm cramps. I mean, excuse me.
They only get slightly less of a grimace than Carvana does.
Oh, Carvana. Oh, Carvana. Okay,
I think BDC can be used not just for vehicle acquisition. You have to start using them for service.
Right? Oh, 100%.
You can
100%.
You can grow service in this environment.
If you're not focused on service right now for BDC sales environment, period, you're crazy, because service isn't lacking the ability currently to provide what the customer is in need of. So that should be a huge focus. You've got vehicle acquisition, you've got service, and then don't forget that just because a consumer has less of a choice right now of where they're going to make a vehicle purchase, don't devalue the role of the BDC, because BDC is not supposed to be the people who wrap presents and run and grab coffee and do all the bullshit work in the dealership that nobody else wants to do. BDC's role,
balloon arches.
Right. BDC's role
that change
is different.
BDC's a bunch of girls that work for free.
You just want to see me get fired up.
I prefer to call them revenue generating machines.
Yes. A true BDC skill set is completely different than a sales team.
Phone and computer room above the parts department. They work for minimum wage and free pizza, right?
Why are you trying to get me to swear? It's not even allowed. Here's the thing, and I can't stress this enough. The skill set of a true sales professional is not the same as the skill set of a BDC professional. BDCs have to use communication. They face rejection nonstop. They're sitting in front of a screen the whole time. It's not the same skill set as once you're able to mirror somebody or have a conversation with them in that way. It requires the ability to be very direct, very detailed, and very able to handle rejection. You think about, like, somebody tells a salesperson no on the showroom floor and they're like, I don't need to follow up. They said no. And we're letting these people answer the phones. Are you kidding me?
You're talking generalities. What does the BDC need to do in 2022?
What really needs to happen is what needs to happen.
Vehicle acquisition and service, they go hand in hand, because you can do your vehicle acquisition and a service drive.
And now's the time to train your BDC. Right now, train your BDC immediately.
A separate BDC for service?
Yeah.
The pay plans are different.
Yeah, absolutely.
Totally different.
I never recommend mixing.
How many dealers have a separate BDC for service?
A lot.
I mean, a lot of them do. I'd be guessing the number.
The big boys do. The big girls
All the ones
do.
that I work with do.
Oh,
Yeah.
you work with the big ones.
We work with a lot of them. And it's like, you think about for a minute, what does a BDC need to do in 2022? I'll tell you the first thing that happens, people need to get out of their way. That's what needs to happen. If you don't work in the BDC, you need to stay out of the BDC. The BDC needs to be trained immediately because, again, coming up soon, it's not going to take much to beat your competition. It really didn't before. Now is a perfect time to make sure that they're trained to do that and to be going through stuff to set up service-based pay plans and start to hire people for that, to elevate the people that you have on your team, and to truly get it together on how these teams work. There's so many dealerships that have service BDCs.
BDC do?
Service BDCs both set appointments for inbound stuff that's coming in online, but more importantly, they're working through acquisition on the service drive. They're filling RO hours as needed. They're looking at what inventory is in and having real conversations to set true appointments. They're making sure that a customer, especially coming into right to repair acts that can screw us all up, are coming back to the correct dealership. They're actively reaching out before a customer is raising their hand and saying they need something.
Right, and there's outbound campaigns for recalls. There's outbound campaigns for decline services. Right, there are outbound campaigns for prepaid maintenance. There are many things that you can do, but unfortunately, I'm pretty sure that a lot of dealers are missing the boat on
declined work.
Declined work.
Huge.
Altogether.
As we're talking about a lot of stuff, and I want to give a tip to dealers out there as far as a service BDC and the structure. First and foremost, because I know a lot of the stores that I work with don't have any hours right now to sell. They're having a hard enough time getting things through as far as internals or that customer pay. Oil change, Jim, you were talking about last week's out 2 weeks. So be cautious and understand what you're trying to accomplish. If you have hours to fill, great. If you don't, you can still take advantage of a service BDC. It's okay to say, I'm going to set this appointment on this particular car because I 100% just want to buy it. Like I don't care if I can get it done in my normal CP turnaround time. I want to buy it. So you need to think about that and come up with a strategy. And January and February are the perfect times to do it. And let me tell you this, in most CRMs, you can actually set it up and identify without
easy
expenses.
So easy. So easy.
So you can set up a trigger before a service appointment, 3 days before, based off of the type of vehicle. Do I want to own this car? Don't try to buy everything. Your buyer or your used car manager isn't going to see value there. But if you're targeting those the right way, I mean, the dealer I was just telling you about that brought on earlier this year, like the 45 cars a month.
Who's killing it, by the way?
Buying it out, and they have a separate service and sales BDC, and the vehicle acquisition specialist works separately, but in the service department. She is in the same building with the
Let me jump on that a second. Now, I love Automotive Mastermind. I like Auto Alert. But one thing I see is the dealerships are not doing so. 30 years ago, I was equity mining before there was a word equity mining.
I know.
I mean, I was equity mining, and I was, I would sell 30 cars on a month, and that wasn't every month, and that was when 30 cars was the end of the world because we didn't have the technology assistance that some of the super performers have today. But how many dealers are truly equity mining? Now think about it. Think.
Now,
cars are worth so much more. Cars are worth 20,000 more than they were 6 months ago. Some of these cars, Highlines, are worth 20,000 more. People that didn't have equity 6 months ago have equity now. Why haven't we readjusted, rethinking, and refocusing on equity mining? Go, Brady.
One thing for sure, you can cancel your equity mining software.
Well, and the thing is, though, don't stop at equity mining. I always like to make this distinction. It's data mining because it's not just equity.
Who else said that, Briggs? You've heard me say data mining a number of times as well. True?
It is data mining.
Data mining is not just equity mining.
Right. And so because, and I know we've talked about this before too, because Max is like, who's has a BDC agent setting appointments to sell aftermarket products? And I'm like, it's data mining.
It's not the norm, Jennifer. You know that.
But it should be. That's why I'm telling everybody about it. It's not hard to do.
That's why we charge what we do, because it's not the norm. But it's not that difficult to do. I mean, like Jennifer was just saying, and I know nobody ever wants to talk about CRM or AI, but I'm just going to put it out there. Most of the CRMs, but I'll use Vin as an example. Vin's ability when a service RO closes tied into the AI software would blow your mind for data mining. Because I know as a salesperson that I have a customer coming in 3 days that is coming in for a service appointment and has been researching vehicles online, but hasn't raised their hand to anybody yet. That's the customer I want to go to first and make an offer to on their vehicle and greet them. And in a service BDC, you can have it be as simple as people are living in a room and they're making the calls and they're doing the touch points. But we install actual people that go out and greet people in service the way we used to try to get salespeople to do, that have offers prepared and have warranty and extended service contract offers prepared, right? And be careful how I use those two words depending on if it's the OEM or who it is. But have that information prepared for the customer so that they have 2 different touch points there. And Vin, for example, for free, you can go in the back end of Vin, any Vin client watching, and set it up so that when the closed ROs come in at night, which they do every night, you can trigger off of them any type of automation, any type of tasking, as simple or as complicated as you want it to be, granular all the way down to the level of an op code that is issued on the RO, or the make and model and the amount of miles. The sky's the limit, and it's free.
Wait a minute.
It doesn't cost anything.
Does that work for real customers in the real world?
Yes.
Yeah.
Talking a lot of theory,
yeah.
So
this is all we do this all the time.
So to share.
Wait, Briggs. Wait. Bobby, when was the last time you were actually in a dealership?
Week ago.
Oh.
And that sales team challenged me, so I ran the floor with them. I want to say I won, but I didn't win against one person, and I was glad.
You go into dealerships and you actually work the floor with the people.
It's crazy. Yes, I do all the time. I want to stay ahead of the game, but I also want people to know that I didn't learn this shit in a cubicle, and that's not what I'm spewing out, and it actually works. So when somebody says, I don't think it happens, I run the desk, I'll run the floor, I'll sell on the floor in the BDC. I'm in dealerships 3, 4, 5 times a month for 3, 4, 5 days at a time, usually.
Show off.
Facts. This is legit stuff, people. And that pay plan needs to be different, by the way, for a service BDC based on those things.
Right.
Yeah, that's amazing. When I would go into dealerships and people would say, well, Ziegler, that shit doesn't work here. I said, well, get out of here.
I love that challenge.
Yeah,
I'm like, okay, let me show you, and then we won't need to argue about it at all anymore.
Right. It's just easier.
It used to amaze me. I would go in a dealership and people say, well, that's not the way we like to do it here. And I said, well, that's not the way we do it. I said, well, do you think your dealer hired me because you're doing a good job?
Right.
Well, and like I've said before, like I'm known for BDC because BDC is an easy skill set for me to implement into a dealership and teach. And there's not a lot of people out there doing it and teaching communication. But I teach leadership and sales, and most of my clients are operations clients. I come in and look at their operations, their financials, restructure all their stuff, and then work with them over the course of a year to both implement and hold their team accountable. That's what I really do every day. So when I come in and do a BDC, that's what I have to do.
Let's go back to the base conversation. We already did the Bobby commercial.
Oh, I don't have any openings, so there's no commercial here. We're sold out for 9 months.
I did the Bobby commercial.
I'm just kidding. We would take you on. We'll figure it out. It'll be fine.
Okay. The BDC is going to do equity mining and Max, what's the next thing we need to do in 2022?
Well, Jennifer brought up a good point. She mentioned that some of the dealerships don't have enough hours to sell now, right? So maybe, right, the thing to do in 2022 is actually go for the second and third shift, right? Don't forget, service department is like a law firm, right? You're in business of selling.
Third shift skeleton crew.
Hiring more salespeople. Max, are you talking about hiring more salespeople?
I'm talking about hiring more technicians, more service.
Max, everybody needs to hire technicians. I mean, the technician shortage, that was the other thing I was going to get to.
Maybe if they had paternity leave, they'd stop turning to other places.
Right. So Bobby is on
technicians. We need to set up apprentice programs for technicians in our own dealerships.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Tennis programs.
Right.
Absolutely.
But, it's like the debate of whether, the chicken or the egg came first. I mean, look at Brian Benstock, right? He's open 24/7, right? And he found a way to find technicians and to find customers. And I don't know the answer. I don't know whether you get the technicians first for 3 shifts, or you get the customers first, or you do something.
No, you get the technicians first.
Yeah. And you run a 3rd shift skeleton crew where the energy bills are less, everything's less expensive. You pick up the customer's car at night, and you drop it off in the morning before they go to work. And then you charge a fee for that convenience.
People have always
Super
asked
easy.
me, how do you grow a dealership to the big numbers? And listen very carefully, because I've done this literally hundreds of times, taking dealerships from 2 to 4, 2 to 1,000 units a month. I've created a lot of 1,000-unit dealerships. And the way that you create a dealership doing 1,000 units a month, everybody pay attention. You act like you're already doing it. You hire the right staff. You have the right inventory, which is a little difficult right now. You have the right inventory. You have the right hours, and you reduce the hours of the people. I reduced the hours of the salespeople by at least 10 hours a week, because my theory was always one shift off, 2 shifts on. In other words, I would create 3 teams in a dealership, no matter how big the sales staff was. 3 teams, that's managers and salespeople. 100% of the time the dealership is open, one of those teams is off. 100% of the time, because believe it or not, the 20-car guy or woman would still sell 20 cars with 10 hours less than they do with 10 hours more. So when I started, because one thing, and I'm going to go with Bobby here, I teased her a bit about the paternity leave and things, but one thing I created was the number one reason people leave dealerships is spouse pressure. Not income, spouse pressure or significant pressure. We have different society today. Okay, spouse pressure, significant other pressure.
I'm really proud of you in this moment. Good job.
I'm still a redneck inside. Okay, anyway.
That's a win.
It was forced.
Anyway, by reducing 10 hours, and that 10-hour schedule that I reduced for the salespeople and the managers includes 1 weekend a month off. But if you create a schedule where every employee has to take 1 weekend a month off, from Friday at noon until Monday at noon, you are not even allowed to be in the dealership if you want to come in. Well, I'm going to come in. No, you're not going to double cross your wife or your husband, and you're not going to come in. If you are scheduled to be off, you are off. Well, what if my customer comes in? Split deal. Excuse me. You're not allowed to be in on your weekend off. So when I designed schedules for these dealerships, it was 10 hours less, 3 teams, 1 team off 100% of the time, and 1 weekend a month off. Last weekend of the month, all hands on deck. What do you think, Max?
Listen, I like it, and I think the balance between, the quality of life is important, and, reducing the work week by 10 hours really gets the job done, because a lot of time, we all know it, the salespeople are just there for no reason, right?
You can schedule three teams, 2 teams on, 1 team off, 100% of the time. And the aggressive people, I want to work on my weekend off. No, you're not. I'm going to work on my time off. No, you're not. You are hard scheduled. You are hard scheduled off when you are off. That was. And
think about like the NADA workforce study. It's not out yet for this year. It doesn't come out until January, but the 2019 one said that we had over an 80% turn rate, and 40% of the people who left the dealership left because they needed a better work-life balance. And over 43% of the people who remained said they considered leaving for the same thing. I mean, you think about those numbers for a minute, and then we say things like old school, like, nope, you got to work all the time because that's how we did it. You're not going to maintain a high retention staff or a high performance culture by doing that. You're going to have a low performance culture because you're always going to be training the same thing, because you're always going to have people starting all over and over and over again. Give people a reasonable schedule, good perks, and then give them the tools and the processes that they need to be successful, it'll blow your mind what that looks like in 3 years. It's insane, the difference. I never can feel like I can stress that enough, that it's so much easier. We have to stop doing things because we've always done them that way. That's the stupidest reason to do something. Whatever.
He's been waiting for you to notice that.
I know. I'm not going to get off of it either. I'm telling you what, that store that did that, it's VW of Marion in Illinois. And I don't normally name stores, but she's not going to care that I said it since it's the truth. Their perks there are amazing. They're in the middle of a rural town. They have a 5-day work week. You get your birthday off. You have two plus weeks of paid vacation, right? I think it's a week the first year. I'm guessing on that. 4 paid sick days, paternity, maternity leave. I mean, this is a great place to work with a solid pay plan. And because of that, they're recruiting people from all over the country. The sales manager was recruited from Atlanta, and she's killer. The marketing director is going to come from whoever I find that's best, but it's going to not probably be from there.
So the thing that's so smart about that VW of Marion has done, and if any of you are not familiar with Marion, Illinois, it's not necessarily a Volkswagen market.
VW of Marion.
Marion, Illinois. So it's
VW of Marion.
Yeah.
Yep, it's part of the Ike Honda group, or the Ike Auto group. So they have a Honda store and then the VW store right there.
They're about 2.5 hours from St. Louis, in the middle of nowhere, right? So it's a rural market and a VW store. Brand new point that they opened a few years ago. So trying to attract talent to compete against volume brands like Nissan or Toyota that they are competing with in town is huge. So this isn't just, this is what I'm going to do. This is a very smart operator stacking the deck to make sure that they might not have the volume. Although I think she's making a huge market.
Killing it in the acquisition too. So impressive. The acquisition is crazy. But yeah, this is not an ideal area to be moving from with big families and stuff. It's a smaller area. And here they are recruiting from all across the country on long-term contracts of people who want to work here because of the balance that it provides and the genuine care that's there. And these people are working their butts off all day long. I mean, they're putting in the work when they're there. 100%. It's a female operator, a female GM.
One of the most progressive dealerships I ever worked with for the Times was Ed Bozarth dealerships out. Ed has 5 stores, and Ed would do some really progressive things. Like when he interviewed an employee, a salesperson, I was consulting the variable. Now Ed paid me several $1 million over the years. I cashed my biggest checks as a consultant from Ed Bozarth, several million. And the funny thing was, he would give them a VHS video or actually a DVD video, and he would have his general managers talk about how they started out as salespeople, show them their houses, show them their cars, introduce them to their wife or husband. And when they hired a new salesperson, they would walk them back to the service department, introduce them to every technician, and tell them that technician's specialties and years in service and how educated they were in their field. And you're laughing, Jennifer.
No, I'm laughing because I'm remembering how many deals I closed talking about how we are the only Chevrolet locations with 3 top-tier nationally recognized Corvette technicians. Like, I've used that information you're talking about.
Ed would do that. If you look out Ed Bozar's service department, hanging over every service technician's workplace is their qualification years in service. The customers can look out in the service department, they can see it. And Bozarth, we have 6 master technicians. He would go through that whole thing. And the progressive dealerships, I created a 4-level pay plan. And now this is where I'm going to defer to Max in a second, because I had 4 levels. We had entry level, professional level, executive level, and master level. And at the master level of pay plan, they got a full paid assistant. They got a Rolex if they maintain that.
Yeah, because why not, right? Like, why not give somebody the tools that they need to do what they're great at?
But we had the master sales level to achieve that, they had to sell 30 cars, 25 cars, 35, whatever the dealership set is that level. And then, the fun thing is they had to qualify for that every third month, every third rolling month. So 2 out of 3 months they had to requalify or fall back to the previous level.
Yeah. So we use that same mentality we use in what's called an internet qualifier program for hybrid sales teams and BDCs for who's qualified to work with an internet-based customer that came in that way.
I wanted to get Bobby, you and I are on the same page here. The
high performance culture.
Salespeople. You can be at professional level, and professional level is generally set at 8 units. If you're at 8 units, you can stay here, but if you go to 12 units consistently, 2 out of 3 months, you hit master level or 15 units, whatever we set it at. And we had a number of dealerships. I'm trying to think of the dealership on Staten Island. Max, Lincoln Mercury dealer on Staten Island. Dana. When
that was impressive.
Jim Cognetta hired me at Dana Ford, and they're the biggest Ford dealer in the state, aren't they?
They are
the biggest Ford dealer in the state. When Jim Cognetta hired me, they were not yet the biggest Ford dealer in the state, and we put the 4-level pay plan. He had three master level guys that had full-time paid assistants. Now the full-time paid assistants became professional salespeople.
Right.
They were salespeople, and so we created that from what I call the big dogs pay plan, but it was a commission based on gross. I don't know how I would set that up right now.
It's interesting. Hi, Dan. It's interesting though, because if you think about like high performance culture, which is what we're all really trying to achieve all the time, think about in automotive, you don't get to experience a win as a competitive human until the end of a month where you start all over. And then we wonder why most of the cars are sold at the end of the month. Instead, start to create the opportunity for a win or a loss weekly instead of just monthly. Because if I fail in that month, I don't get a win for another month. All of a sudden, you're underwater. You're like, oh, I forgot how to do it. I can't do it.
Bobby. Nobody is ever going to change that. Most cars are going to be sold at the end of the month. 2/3 of the cars in every dealership are going to be sold after the 15th, not because we want to or not because we don't try, but because that's the way money flows through the U.S. economy.
Nobody else gets paid by the month.
No, it doesn't.
Nobody else gets a monthly paycheck. That's not how that works.
Doesn't matter.
We've trained consumers to do that, and we've trained our marketing efforts to heavily rely on the end of the month. 2/3
of cars will always be sold after the 15th because that's the way money flows through the U.S. economy. If you ever study it, and there's been some real intricate studies on that by people much smarter than I am. We're going to sell 1/3 of the cars. Don't stop advertising. But I go fishing. I don't fish at high noon when the sun is 110 degrees in the water. I go fishing when the water's cooler toward the evening. You fish when fish are biting.
Okay, fair. I'm going to try a different approach.
Or you lay a
imagine if that's accurate and you're selling, let's say in the last week of the month, you're selling 50% of your cars, right? And that number, let's just say that number is 100, right? Imagine if you had a high performance culture that promoted growth by the week. And in the first 2 weeks, you could double the amount. Then I guess the way economies flow, it would double at the end too.
You can double the amount of cars sold in the first half. But if you double the amount of cars sold in the first half, you're going to 4 times the number of units sold in the second half.
There we go. Yay. It's all in how you present it, people. but that's the thing is we don't look at it like that in the dealership. All these pay plans are typically written based on a monthly win or a monthly loss. And these are highly competitive people. You hire them because they're competitive, because they're extroverted, because they're charming to work with people. And then you only incentivize them at the end of the month to either win or lose one time.
Dan Glass says I'm right.
I think he was talking to you. You're right. Good job, Dan.
We're getting down to the end of this highly entertaining hour that we have spent together. Oh, paternity leave. What a crap.
I think
if you are a marketing director looking for a job at a badass place, please DM me or email me. Like, let's do this.
Paternity leave. Quit it. I mean, dealership is not a social organization. You know, we're not.
You're so silly.
Yeah.
He just wants me to be fired up.
Eternity.
Max, did you get his turn today with me instead of yours with Jen's? What's going on here?
Eternity league. Back up,
Change
man,
it up.
Bunny, get out of here.
33% of the respondents on NADA's 2019 workforce study said that they wished that paternity and maternity leave were a perk of the job.
So that means 67% don't care about it.
Girls were
The other 67% would like everybody to get out of their way, and they would like more money or time off.
That was 2019. I think that what we've seen happen with our workforce issues through the pandemic and this last 2 years will greatly increase that number.
Okay, well we can argue about that on another show. How's the show been this week, guys? I had fun.
It's been good. Yeah, this was fun.
We didn't even start talking about advertising efficiencies and making sure in your projections that you have that going right into next year.
Bob got stuff on BBC, so we didn't move on.
Listen, it's important. I'm telling you. I'm telling you.
Okay, everybody wave goodbye to the audience.
Do my royal wave. I'm gonna